The 1995 Indianapolis 500 was the 79th running of the race. It was also the last Indy 500 that featured the kart teams and drivers as its primary entries. The Indy 500 is the largest single-day sporting event on the planet, and the event has been such a tremendous success. It definitely got a little resurgence since the 100th running. But was 1995 the peak of the Indianapolis 500? Or do you think today's current IndyCar series makes this race just as big and exciting as it was during the kart days? The 1995 race was definitely an interesting one, as both Team Penske cars failed to qualify for the race. And that whole situation there could probably be a video on its own, as Team Penske dominated the race in 1994 with its Mercedes engine, as well as pretty much dominating the entire series in 1994. And in 1995, some changes were made to basically nerf it, and Team Penske had a lot of trouble getting up to speed. And it literally seems unbelievable that Al Unser Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi would fail to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. A total of 17 different drivers either failed to qualify, withdrew from the event, or a driver change was made. Team Menard teammates of Scott Brayton and Arie Luyendyk took the top two spots in their Lola Menard V6s, with Scott Goodyear Tasman Motorsports Reynard Honda on the outside of the front row. As the field rolled out onto the track for the pace laps, the first problems of the day would happen before the green flag was even waved, as Robbie Gordon had to make an emergency pit stop due to communication problems, which the team desperately tried to fix before the start of the race. Scott Brayton leads the field to green to kick off the 79th running of the Indianapolis 500.
The pace car begins now to accelerate. Scott Brayton, the pole sitter, leads the front row around. Good alignment on the front row. Pace car is off the track now. They're a bit straggled beyond the front row. Brayton begins to accelerate. There's the green flag. And the 79th running of the Indy 500 is underway as Scott Goodyear sweeps across the outside and into the lead. Arie Luyendyk ducks into second place. And we've got a car into the wall right off of the first turn. Two cars tangled. One of them is Eddie Cheever. The other looked to be Stan Fox. And the front end of one car cut away. The rest of the field slows.
A devastating incident exiting turn 1 as Stan Fox went head-on into the wall, which ripped the front end of his car completely off in one of the scariest IndyCar accidents you'll ever see. Fortunately, Stan Fox was not fatally injured from this, but he would not race again. I'm not going to go into in-depth detail about that, but in one of my 10 brutal IndyCar crashes compilations, I go fully in-depth about this accident, so make sure to check that video out if you haven't. I'll link it in the description below. But what a devastating start for so many drivers, as the field did look pretty unorganized. I was actually kind of surprised that they threw the green flag there. It seemed like only the first 3 cars were actually in line, but Scott Goodyear made a nice power move from the outside of that front row to take the lead going into turn number 1. And Robbie Gordon would benefit from this accident too, as he was still on pit road when the green flag waved.
Here it is as the leader, Scott Goodyear, came off of 2. Now watch way up in the corner. Suddenly 2 cars get together, and that was Cheever and Fox. The field darts to the inside, many using the warm-up lanes, which were only built here a few years ago, but probably saved many drivers here today. Stan Fox looks like he got into the wall incredibly hard. We're concerned about him, very concerned. We'll keep an eye, and we won't report anything until we actually have it confirmed.
You can see as we look at this second replay how many tires and suspension pieces began to come off the cars right away and affect cars that really were not part of the original accident at all. Lynn St. James was one of those who was tagged by flying debris. Here's a third one from the car of Bobby Rahal, who of course started fairly far back in the pack. Watch to the right of the screen, and there's where the debris is already bouncing around. Remember, carbon fiber is dark gray in color. It's very hard to see against the track, particularly on a day like this, so it's easy to pick up a flat.
It would look from my vantage point down here in turn 2, Sam and Paul, that something must have broken on the Fox car, because it immediately made a right-hand turn. That's not normal.
The cleanup would be extensive and take 9 laps to complete, but Scott Goodyear would lead the field back to green, coming to lap number 10.
And here we go. Green light winks on the main straightaway. Now single file back to the green. And Ari Leyendijk immediately starts a challenge on Goodyear. Michael Andretti is third. Scott Brayton is fourth, and Leyendijk sweeps across the front. Look at the tremendous power of that Menard engine as he begins to pull away.
Look at the smoke coming out of the Menard. We had smoke coming out of the right rear of the Menard as it came through that corner. Now that could have been from the debris before, Paul, because I don't see any smoke down the back straightaway.
Michael Andretti moving inside of Scott Goodyear. The fight is for second place.
I asked Scott if he figured he'd have to go after the Menards, even though it's thought that the Menards might not finish the race. He said, yeah, I got to race them no matter what, so that's what we're seeing happen here.
Ari Leyendijk would lead 7 laps before Michael Andretti took advantage of lap traffic and blew past him to take the lead going down the back straightaway, as Ari just had a hard time getting through the traffic.
And already the leaders start to overhaul slower cars. This may be a chance for Michael. It is as they come past Stefan Johansson. Michael passes the leader. There's Herta just ahead of Ari Leyendijk, who's now back in second place.
Ari Leyendijk would be one of the first leaders to hit pit road to make a green flag pit stop, but unfortunately disaster would strike when he was trying to leave his pits. The engine misfired and the car ended up stalling. The team was able to pull him back, get it refired, but the car still had a misfire. He would continue in the race, as if you remember on that restart when he took the lead, a puff of smoke did come out of the back of that Menards V6. With the majority of the leaders already hitting pit road, Jacques Villeneuve, who has not pitted yet, was in the lead of the race. Before he can make his pit stop though, the yellow flag would come out for debris, and this has to be one of the funniest debris cautions you will ever see.
Here's the lineup after 38 laps with Jacques Villeneuve at the top of the order, as we suggested. We are now under a yellow, and the reason for the yellow is a piece of debris out on the racetrack. And how did it get there? Well, Ari Leyendijk was going down the front straightaway. Now watch him. He was having trouble with the driver in front of him. Had to dart a couple ways to get by, and in his anger, he knocked out the headrest.
He didn't approve of Scott Sharp.
During this yellow flag, things would go from bad to worse for Jacques Villeneuve as he had trouble on his pit stop. The stop was slow, and when he left his box, he almost took the fuel hose with him, as well as stalling the engine. But on top of that, when the caution came out and the pace car came out onto the track, he did not realize he was the leader of the race, and he ended up passing the pace car not once but twice in the confusion. This would make the USAC officials assess him a 2-lap penalty, and they would do it by simply just removing 2 laps from his scoring card. When the field was set to go back racing, Michael Andretti resumed the lead of the race.
We come back to the green light, and we're back racing again, riding on Bobby Rahaal's nose as we head down into turn 1 at better than 215 miles an hour. The leader is Andretti. Scott Goodyear is in second. There is Michael. The order now with the pit stops. Some of these slower cars and backfield cars are mixed in with the leaders of the race.
The leaders went through another cycle of green flag pit stops, and Michael Andretti seemed to have the dominant car in the first half of the race. But everything would change for Michael on lap 77. Mauricio Gugelmin, who was on an alternate strategy, was leading the race, and Michael was in second place. Michael was catching Mauricio Gugelmin rather quickly, and Mauricio Gugelmin slowed down in turn number 4. Michael made the move to the outside, but unfortunately he would get into the marbles and the outside wall.
Michael Andretti makes his move as Gugelmin heads for the pits, and Michael Andretti goes for the lead of the race once again. Mauricio Gugelmin makes his second stop of the day, and Michael Andretti assumes the lead. He was closing quickly on Gugelmin as he slowed down, and then Andretti came into the pits as well. Now, Andretti last made a stop just 10 laps ago, so this stop for Andretti is not routine. Gugelmin's stop is.
This would ultimately put an end to Michael Andretti's day after such a dominating performance in the early stages of the race, as he damaged the rear wishbone and other suspension parts when he made contact with the outside wall on the exit of turn number 4.
Now here is Michael Andretti. Yeah, that's not a brush, that's a solid hit.
As Michael was exiting his car, the third caution of the race would come out when Scott Sharp got into the outside wall, and during this whole sequence with pit stops and the yellow coming out, Jacques Villeneuve was able to get one of his laps back.
This was Scott Sharp's situation. Same place on the track coming off of the fourth turn.
You know, that could also mean that there's some fluids down there, Paul. We should think about that too. You know, a little water, oil spillage that you can't see.
With another caution during a pit stop cycle, when the running order was all sorted, this would actually keep Mauricio Gugelmin in the lead of the race, and he would lead the field back to the green flag.
Mauricio Gugelmin is the leader, followed by Tracy, and then the rookie, Andrew Ribeiro. And we're green. Here we go again. Looking for Gugelmin in the middle of all that. There he is, swinging to the outside. That's Rahal just in front of him.
Dangerous part right there, Paul, whittling his way up through the pack like that. He's right in the middle of it for a while.
Paul Tracy, just a few cars back.
The green flag would be short-lived as Stefan Johansson, who was on the service road of the racetrack, lost a right rear tire and spun around, which would bring out the yellow once again. This would be a huge break for Jacques Villeneuve, as he was still one lap down, but he was just in front of the leader of the race, and this would allow him to go back around to catch back up, without the risk of going back 2 laps down. Mauricio Gugelmin would maintain the lead of the race on the restart, and he would end up leading all the way till he had to make a green flag pit stop. As most of the front runners made their pit stop, the yellow flag would come out once again when Andre Ribeiro would stall on the track due to an electrical problem. When everything cycled through due to this yellow flag, Mauricio Gugelmin would maintain the lead of the race once again. Only 11 laps after that restart, the yellow flag would come out once again when Paul Tracy had electrical problems and slowed on the back straightaway. Through this whole sequence of these yellow flags bunched together, it allowed Jacques Villeneuve to get back on the lead lap. And not only that, he would restart in the second position. There was also some strategy being played during this yellow, as now Jimmy Vasser was in the lead of the race, and he would lead the field back to the green flag.
Here we go again. Vasser in the lead. The 27 car of Villeneuve in second place. So Vasser's actually sitting third in the order. Villeneuve is another 4 cars back. There goes Vasser. Keep an eye on the blue and white car, the 27 of Villeneuve.
On lap 155, Jimmy Vasser would hit pit road, and Jacques Villeneuve would take the lead of the race for the first time since sustaining that 2-lap penalty. With 38 laps to go, Jacques Villeneuve was about to hit pit road to make a green flag pit stop, but the yellow flag would come out as Davy Jones got into the outside wall. Villeneuve would swerve back out onto the racetrack. Unfortunately, he lost the lead to Scott Pruitt, but saved himself a penalty from entering a closed pit road.
And the yellow comes out. Whoa. Look what that does. That means that the pits close. We've got Davy Jones into the wall. It means that as he was going for the pits, Pruitt was able to pick up the lead from Villeneuve. Then Villeneuve saw the pits were closed and veered back out onto the racetrack.
Will he have enough fuel?
But a good call.
Will he have enough fuel, though, now?
Now here is a situation with Davy, who just got high coming off it too, right in front of the VIP suites and up against the wall. He appears to be okay as a result. Here's another view of it.
He had, Davy Jones did a very decent race going for himself. You've seen him able to hold off Bobby Rahal. You see him now above the groove there in the center of your screen. He's in deep trouble already, I would think, wouldn't you, Bobby?
Yes,
no chance.
Once you get that far into the gray, where you pass the apex on the corner, near the exit, that's it.
Villeneuve did have enough fuel to make it back around to the pits, and when everything cycled through, this put Jimmy Vasser back in the lead of the race for the restart.
Just 32 laps to go. Now is the time when the crew will turn them totally loose and say, race it on your own, as Jimmy Vasser picks up the pace. Matsuda heads into the pits as they come back to green. Vasser passes him.
Pruitt fans down on the right.
Pruitt moves to the inside. That's Goodyear sliding in just behind them. Pruitt can't get it done. Drops 2 wheels below the line onto the rumble strip. Battle for the lead at Indianapolis. Now let's go to the pitch, Jerry Punch.
Checking in on what Jimmy Vasser's going to do, guys. Here's the scenario in the Vasser pit. I talked with Tom Anderson. They pitted on lap 156.
Whoa, another car into the wall,
Vasser.
and it's Vasser. Vasser into the wall.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
Every Indianapolis 500 has its own character. There's his crew.
Disbelieving.
Not even 2 laps after the restart, Jimmy Vasser puts the car into the outside wall, well leading the Indianapolis 500 in the closing stages. There was still 1 pit stop left, but Jimmy Vasser put himself in good position to try to win this, before getting up in the marbles and hitting the outside wall similar to several other drivers throughout the day.
Let's take a look at it. Look how high he is there.
Completely out of the groove. There he is, kaboom. He just went into the turn too fast, it looks like, got out of the groove. Once you get out there, especially when the groove is very dirty this late in the race, that's where all the little rubber deals off the tires have gone, all the little trash. Look at him going out there, kaboom, right into the wall there. It's just too loose out there. The guys have to stay in the groove.
This yellow flag would ensure everyone would have enough fuel to make it to the end of the race without a problem, and it would put Scott Pruitt out front with Scott Goodyear in second and Jacques Villeneuve in the 3rd position.
And here we go. This should be a run to the 500th mile. As immediately Goodyear tries to make a move and gets it done as they cross the line.
Pruitt drops right into his slipstream.
He absolutely drafted him. I saw it coming. He laid for him. Scott Pruitt was slow on the gas. What a better thing. You can bet Pat Patrick is going straight in the air right now.
Scott Goodyear with the immediate move on Scott Pruitt to take the lead before they even make it to turn number 1. But I don't know if you noticed on that restart, both these drivers got extremely lucky to not get penalized here, as they both passed the pace car before it actually hit pit road, but the officials let this one slide. As the race entered its closing stages, it looked like it was going to come down to Scott Goodyear and Scott Pruitt, as the two distanced themselves quite substantially from the rest of the field and Jacques Villeneuve, who was running in 3rd. But with 16 laps to go, everything would change.
Pruitt grabs the wall. Got a little high. Back through the inside.
I told you the gusting was really bad. You just can't help it. The wind just all of a sudden came up, and I'm sure that's what got Scott Pruitt.
Villeneuve moves to 2nd place as Pruitt catches the wall, and the yellow light comes on again with 16 laps to go.
In the closing stages of this race, the wind gust got pretty heavy, up to 30 miles an hour, and it caught Scott Pruitt out, pushed him up the track a little bit, got into the outside wall, then came down and hit the inside wall and the fence, completely ripping the rear end off this car. Surprisingly though, the yellow flag was not that long, as Scott Pruitt destroyed that catch fence on the back straightaway.
He just came through there, and you can just see almost hit the whole wall sideways, or hit the car sideways, right almost even. The rear end was out just a little bit. It's just a gust of wind, I'm sure.
He tried everything he could to catch it. Once he got the wall, he was totally out of control, cut the gearbox off the back of the car as well as the rear suspension, and did some damage to the fence there. Here's one more view of it, Sam.
He slides out at the back. Watch the tail of his car get a little wide here. He tries to fight the car to steer into the slide. It's too late. He runs out of track.
Almost verbatim what happened to Emerson Fittipaldi last year. Almost the same thing, the same way.
Except in turn 2 for Scott Pruitt. And there he is as he catches the wall and slides on along it.
As the race would get ready for its final restart with only 10 laps to go, controversy would strike the front runners. As you remember the last restart, Scott Goodyear cut it pretty close passing the pace car before it entered pit road, but this time he wouldn't get so lucky, as he would catch the pace car while it was still in turn number 4.
He is Canadian if he can win. Be the first Canadian to do so, but remember, Villeneuve is also Canadian. And Salazar then Fittipaldi.
He blew the pace car right off.
No, that can't be right.
Can't do that.
Pace car was too slow, Paul. He needed to get a run.
But they gave him the green flag anyway. Dwayne Sweeney is waving the green flag. Goodyear got a run on the pace car.
I think it was only a normal deal. The pace car just wouldn't accelerate. He just went too slow.
Jacques Villeneuve was not anticipating that. And as a result, Goodyear got a good run on him. Now that's Arie Luyendyk that's moving in there. He is not part of this battle. Luyendyk runs in 8th place, a lap down.
Scott Goodyear absolutely blew the doors off the pace car as it was still in the middle of turn 4, and he would receive a stop and go penalty from the USAC officials for passing the pace car on the restart. Jacques Villeneuve with a huge heads up move, as well as the rest of the field, to slow down and not pass the pace car. Thankfully they all avoided hitting each other as well, would end up being the turning point of the race. This would become one of the biggest Indy 500 controversies in the race's history, as Scott Goodyear claimed that he saw the green light, but upon investigation of that was not the case. And some people even believe that the pace car was just going too slow, but it also turned out that was not the case either. Scott Goodyear would stay out on the track, refusing to come in for his stop and go penalty. The rules state that if you receive a stop and go penalty, you have 5 laps to serve that penalty. As he did not, he would stop being scored with 5 laps to go in the race, and that would give Jacques Villeneuve the lead. Scott Goodyear's reason for staying out was so he could be scored the winner if a protest did happen and he was the winner of that. He would be able to claim the victory of the race. Well, if he did go into the pits to serve that stop and go penalty, no matter the outcome, he would not be scored the winner. Ultimately, in the end, the Tasman Motorsports team decided not to file a protest, which would end up dropping Scott Goodyear to 14th 5 laps down. All Jacques Villeneuve had to do at this point was just cruise to the victory and not make any mistakes, as he had no pressure from behind. That car behind him was Arie Luyendyk, who was a lap down. But either way, it looked like a Canadian was going to win their first Indy 500.
Now, Jacques Villeneuve will be looking at a white flag and one final lap, a final 2.5 miles. An unbelievable run. The story will be told that Jacques Villeneuve went 2 laps down on a penalty and fought his way back to the front of the field, across the South Chute for the final time in front of Bobby Unser.
Going by us, and he's looking really good, Paul. No problems.
Arie Luyendyk staying right there, wants to get in that winner's picture. Jacques Villeneuve on the backstretch.
The magnitude of his achievement. Listen to the roar of the crowd. Back from 2 laps down. Only his 2nd year.
One more turn. The first Canadian on his way to winning the Indianapolis 500. Jacques Villeneuve on the home stretch. And the 79th Indy 500 has been won by Jacques Villeneuve as Arie Luyendyk screams by on the outside. The young Canadian has taken the win. There's 2nd place, Christian Fittipaldi. 3rd place is Bobby Rahal. Eliseo Salazar finishes in 4th. Robbie Gordon comes across the line in 5th place. And look at the despair of Leslie Goodyear.
Jacques Villeneuve becomes the first Canadian in Indianapolis 500 history to score a victory at the Speedway. This would be his 2nd of 4 victories on the season, which launched him to win the 1995 Kart Series Championship before making the move to Formula One with the Williams team in 1996. That's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to let me know in the comments how you feel about this race. Was this the last great Indy 500? Or let me know how you feel about the controversy at the end surrounding Scott Goodyear. Was that penalty justified? Or was the pace car just going too slow? And lastly, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this one. And subscribe to the channel if you're into motorsports history like I am. See you in the next one. Take care, everyone.